Hi there, I'm Kathleen Jasper, and today we're talking about whether or not you should quit the teaching profession. I get this question a lot via email and through Messenger on our Facebook page. And so I thought I would do a quick discussion today on YouTube about this situation. Let's get started. All right, so it's coming to the end of the year, and some of you are burnt out, fried, and wondering whether or not you should keep going. And I'm not going to be here to tell you one way or the other whether you should keep pushing through this very tumultuous time in education or if you should quit. What I am going to do today is discuss some statistics, some data, and some realities about the teaching job that you may be encountering and, offer you some tips and tricks to get through it. And if you decide to leave, then there are other options for you out there as well. One of the things that we are seeing because of the pandemic is a mass exodus out of all professions, but a lot of people are leaving the teaching profession and the healthcare profession. So we're seeing lots of nurses leave their positions and we're seeing lots of teachers leave their positions. Now, I have known for years that 50% to 55% of new teachers leave before year 5. That is a statistic that has been, widely known among educational researchers for a long time. Those are those new teachers who come in, they get in there 1 to 3 years, they're thinking, this is not what I thought it was going to be, and they end up leaving. So the 50% mark of new teachers has always been there. And it's really been a difficult thing for districts and states to get over, because if you have 50% of all of your new workers leaving, the cost is enormous. You have to retrain teachers, you have to go find new teachers. It leaves a hole in instruction, and it just affects everybody from the student on up to the state level. So it is a difficult situation that states find themselves in. However, they have done little to change or make the teaching profession better for those of you who are in it. So if you're expecting the organization or the state agencies to change, you're not going to be very happy, because they haven't changed for, over 200 years. The model of education is still the same. It still doesn't pay very much money. And depending on what state you live in, it can be a really difficult time to be a teacher. Let me just go over a few statistics that I read in a recent NEA, that's the National Education Association. It's a National Association of Teachers, and they did a survey and they were asking, how likely are you to quit the job? And so I want to discuss these numbers with you so you're aware of the data. All right, so according to the NEA survey, and I'm going to assume that this was a very, very large sample size because this is a national organization that has lots of teachers in it. They say that 55% of all teachers are planning to leave the profession by the end of next year. So this is a significant increase. It was 37% of their population of teachers that they surveyed. Now it's up to 55%, and a lot of them cite the pandemic. So there's been a lot of pressure on teachers, administrators, students, everybody during the pandemic. But of course, teachers bear the brunt of this particular pandemic situation. And so teachers are fried because of one thing or another, and they are leaving the profession. So that is a huge increase over the last year or two. The second thing that's alarming as well is that 62% of Black and 59% of Hispanic or Latino teachers are planning on leaving the profession. So that's a big increase from just the 50 to 55% overall. This is not just new teachers. These are teachers that have, years of experience in the classroom. And the reason why the exodus of Black and Latino and Hispanic teachers leaving the profession is so alarming is because we need representation in education for our students. And that means we need to hire more Black teachers. We need to hire more Hispanic and Latino teachers so that the principals and the teachers and the assistant principals and the guidance counselors reflect the population in the schools in which they are being educators in. And so it's really important that we hold on to our Black educators and our Hispanic and Latino and Asian and people of color in those positions, because we want to show representation of everybody there so that students aspire to be an assistant principal or a teacher or a guidance counselor or whatever. So that is an alarming statistic. Now, like I mentioned before, it used to be that 50% of new teachers were leaving because the stress of the job was just too much. And the teachers who had been in the profession longer were staying because, they're almost to retirement. They're not going to leave after they've been in for 11, 10 years. They're going to stick it out. or maybe change direction within their profession. Like maybe they're going to get out of the classroom and do something else, but stay in education. But the statistics are showing that over 50% of teachers who have 10 or more years in the classroom are leaving. And 57% of those with 21 years or more experience are leaving, which is crazy because it used to be that those teachers would stay an extra 2-3 years because you get more in your pension or your retirement plan. And we're seeing people say, I don't care, I'm out of here. So that is alarming. It's not just alarming for us as educators, right? And for our kids, but the state agencies should be very alarmed by this, because this means that there's going to be a mass exodus out of education, and they're going to have to fill those holes. And so what's happening now, and I'm sure you've seen this in the classroom, teachers are out either sick or they're leaving or they're retiring early. Now there's a permanent sub in there, and a lot of permanent substitutes do a great job. I started off as a permanent substitute for someone who retired, and I worked my butt off and my kids did well. But this switching out of teachers and having a sub in there one day, I even have a colleague who is the principal, who is the language arts teacher right now in the school because there's such a shortage. So when the principal has to be pulled from the leadership position and put into the classroom, that says something. Number one, it says that this principal is pretty awesome to do that. A lot of principals would never do that. And two, it means we must be in dire straits here for the principal to be leaving her post and going down into the language arts position to fill that position. So not only are we losing teachers, but we're losing administrators too. Administrators need to be there to do building administration. So we're pulling them from their positions and putting them into the classroom in some cases. So this is alarming. And the pressure becomes more increased on teachers because of all of the holes that they are trying to fill as well. Covering classes on your planning period, doing more work, maybe getting extra students in your class because a teacher is out. It just becomes really, really difficult. And so that is something to consider before entering the profession, or if you are kind of on the fence of whether to leave or not. Now, you add the cost of certification, the tests, the time, and everything else, and the fact that teachers are under attack right now from all angles, whether it's parents, politicians, whatever. It can be a very tumultuous time to be an educator. I am shocked at how much teachers are being attacked in the media and by politicians. I mean, I'm not really shocked. It's something that's been happening since the 1950s and really since the beginning. In the 1950s, they rounded up teachers and called them communists and put them in jail. They did the same thing to university professors. And they're doing the same thing now to teachers with critical race theory. That's not even part of the curriculum. We have parents yelling and screaming at school board meetings, saying their kids are being indoctrinated. We have politicians in some states setting up teacher snitch lines where you can call in and report a teacher who's doing something wrong. And in other states, like my own, they are moving to videotape and record classrooms where, some of that information can be used against teachers. Now, I'm all for a teacher accountability. I believe in holding teachers accountable and making sure we have the best educators in the classroom as possible. But all of this seems very Orwellian to me. And a lot of these decisions are being made by politicians who have never, ever been a classroom teacher. And that is particularly the situation where I live in Florida. We have a lot of people, including the education commissioner here, who has never, ever been a teacher and who is attacking teachers for having, diverse opinions, who, express their political opinions and things like that. If they are different from the education commissioner or the governor, he gets very upset and ends up, firing these teachers. He's done that a couple of times here in Florida. So it's a dicey situation to be an educator. Now, one of the things you might want to consider is, quitting. And that's certainly something that you can do, or stop the certification process if you're in the middle of that. If it's too much for you and you can't sleep at night and you are physically ill from the situation, then leaving the profession altogether might be something that you need to do. Now, a lot of people are scared to do this. They are afraid because of the benefits and all of that. But I'll tell you, I did it. I quit 8 years ago, and I did fine. I started my own business. I was able to make a living. And here I am today talking to you on my YouTube channel. So there are other ways to make money. You don't have to be abused by the system in order to have benefits and things like that. Now, that being said, we still need teachers. And those of you who are willing to stay, we need you. And so if you are one of those who says, no, I'm going to stay, I want to change it from the inside, I think that's great. I think if you stay and you do your best for your students and you focus on your students, that is the best way to get through this time and get over this, crazy atmosphere and things like that that's happening in education. But you have to really kind of scale back. And I've mentioned this before. You need to scale back on your duties, work your contract hour. Don't go above and beyond for the state. They don't care about you. Okay. The Board of Education, you guys are just numbers. You are not a face. You are not a name. And that's just the way it is in large organizations. And if you can just accept that and operate in the machine, I used to call it a machine all the time. If you can operate in the machine and keep your peace, then stay in for your students and do the work that you know to be the best work you can possibly do. Now, some of you are outraged and you do not want to leave the profession. In that case, I recommend attending school board meetings, making sure that your voices are heard at local school board meetings. I can't tell you how many school board meetings I've been to, and there's only been 1 or 2 teachers in attendance. And those are usually the very active, outgoing, vocal teachers who are advocating for themselves and others. If you want change to happen, it needs to happen locally first. A lot of people get caught up in what the president said about education or the U.S. Department of Education commissioner and all that. That doesn't really mess with your life as a local school teacher, but the school board does. Your representative, your state representative does. And so if you really want to make changes that impact the profession, you've got to get involved locally and at the very least, vote locally and really figure out what your representatives and what your local leaders are doing in the education field. They have come up with all kinds of crazy things for education. I have seen non-educators get elected and start with all of these things that are just absolutely insane. And all it's going to do is put more work on teachers, alienate teachers, and push teachers out of the profession altogether. So that's why it's important that they hear from you. I'm not saying they're going to listen to you right away, but if you bring your friend and she brings 3 friends and he brings 5 friends and you go down to the local school board and you express that you are against book banning, that you are against a policy, or you want to see a policy implemented, and you keep doing that over and over again, they have to start listening to you. So change takes time, and the education system does not like change. It does not like change. If you look at the model, you have the 7 period a day, the bell that rings every 7 periods. That's been going on since the start of compulsory education over 200 years ago. So we need to make sure that we understand that this change is not going to happen overnight. But in some states, you have strong unions. Get with your union reps, organize, mobilize, and try to make some changes and get out there, because right now the loudest voices are the parents who are storming school board meetings talking about Marxism and critical race theory and all these things that they have no idea what they're talking about. And the other thing that they're doing is villainizing teachers. And so I think it's really important that you guys stand up and do what you can if you're going to stay in the profession. All right, so I've gone over a few of the pros and cons, some of the things facing teachers today. I'm not here to persuade you one way or another to quit your job or to stay in the profession, but I do think that it is important to evaluate the situation and determine what is best for you and what you are willing to do. Remember, you are important and you need to rest. You need to, be able to be creative and do the things you like. A lot of times I will advise people to rest first before they quit. Sometimes when you're overwhelmed and you are tired, you make decisions that are rash and you may regret those decisions. So I would say pause first. Really think about it, maybe take a week off. I know that that's not always possible, or maybe think about it over the summer and really evaluate whether or not you want to continue. And if you do, remember that the students need you and they need you to be rested and they need you to be on your game. And so In some instances, you're going to have to filter out some of this noise that's going on all around you and focus on the students. And in other situations, you're going to have to mobilize and organize and head to, the state offices or the local school boards if you want to see changes made to the profession like you want. So those are just a few things that I was thinking about over the last couple of days before I made this video. I hope you found some value in this. Feel free to use the comments below to discuss anything that I talked about here. I am aware that this is a controversial topic, and feel free to express yourself below. I'm happy to have a conversation about it. And if you'd like another video on this or something similar to this, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching and have an awesome day.